I'll kick off then. I think, let me see if I can do that. So I'm going to share my slides. Please note that they're not really slides meant they're not professionally done or anything. It's more my notes, but I thought it would be useful for everyone to see through my thought process whilst I talk through them. I literally put them together an hour ago. So say if there are any spelling mistakes, try and ignore them. So let me know if you cannot see my screen. Give me, can I see your face? Can I see hands up if you can't see my screen? Okay. So I assume everybody can see my screen. Great. So I wanted to talk about 2018 summer. So I had I read a book called The One Thing, which changed the way I think about personal productivity completely. And that's primarily the thing, what I want to share with you all today, and how it changed my personal approach to thinking about productivity. Can I ask who has read it, or who has read the? If you've read it, can I see your hands up? Okay, I see only, I think, one person. Is that right? Okay, so most of this will be new for you guys. Great. So I'll start with the book profoundly changed the way I think about productivity, because I realized that I held beliefs about productivity that were simply not true. And in order for me to make real progress towards my goals and successes, I needed to question at least one of those beliefs. And that's what I want to talk about today. So I want to start with a truth or false question and answer for all of you. Get ready to put whether you think it's true or false in the chat. Okay, so just hit your chat. And maybe, Lolly, you can help me ask the questions. So the first question that I have is that there is an idea that if you put a frog in hot water, it will jump straight out. But if you put the frog in a lukewarm water and you put it on a stove and you cook it slowly, it won't jump out and it will cook. It will literally boil to death. True or false? Let's see if I can see the chat. Okay, second question. There is a story about a captain called Captain Cortez, who once, I can't remember the specifics of the story, but this is essentially he is going to America, I think, to take over some place there, and he burns all his ships to motivate his team to fight, because they actually can't go back. They have to stay. True or false? That the captain burnt all his ships and everybody had to stay essentially on the island, and that motivated them to fight. True or false? Okay, I see. True, false, true, false. Okay, third question. Breakfast is good for me and is good for you. True or false? And just put number 3 and then false, true or false next to it. Breakfast is good. Breakfast is good. True or false? Okay. Fourth question. Fish stinks from the head down. True or false? Okay, I'm going to stop the sharing because I can't see the chat. I really want to see what everybody is saying. Hold on. Where is this chat?
I've got.
Can you tell me what's going on? I can't see the chat.
Right, so quite a few people have said true for the first question. The frog question, we've got one false. Gareth thinks it's false. Everyone else has put that true. For the second question about the burnt ships, false, 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 false. And Jacqueline thinks it's true, but everyone else has put false. And then for the breakfast question, Angela has put false, Selena has put false, and everybody else has put true. And then for the last one, we've got true. Can we repeat the last question, please?
Okay, so the last question was, give me one sec. It was fish stinks from the head down. And so it stinks more at the head than it does at the tail. True or false?
True. Thinks. Thinks.
The STINKS. Sorry. Doesn't matter, someone says. Good question. iPad. That's Gareth. You're right. Actually, you're wrong. It does matter, because most of these things are myths. And most of these are described as truthy lies. Things that we get told over and over and over and over again, that at some point we begin to believe them, and they actually feel like they're true. Like whether breakfast is good was invented a long time ago by lots of companies whose interest was to sell us on the idea that breakfast is good. The idea of putting a frog in water and it will jump out, but if you cook it slowly, it won't. It's complete myth. That is false. And Captain Cortez never burnt his ships. That all of these are false. And this is some of the examples that the book uses around how these beliefs and these truths become myths. And success and productivity has its own lies too. And I discover, and the book highlights quite a few of these that we have begun to believe that are true, that actually are not true. And I'll just go through some of them with you. So I just have too much that has to be done is a thing that we all tell each other, right? I need to be more disciplined as a person to be more productive. I should be able to do whatever I want when I want. So if I want to do my work in the morning, I can do it in the evening or in the afternoon, and that doesn't impact my personal productivity. I will get more done by doing more things. Maybe I should not dream so big, or I need to balance. Maybe I should not. Sorry, Rachel, could you mind muting for me?
Yeah, she's cool.
Thank you. Maybe I shouldn't dream so big, or maybe we need balance in our life, work and life balance. And a lot of these, the book argues that it's actually some of the lies that we tell ourselves that makes us less productive. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I just want to go through how one of these myths or one of these beliefs that I had, I actually challenged, and that is the one thing that I've changed in my personal productivity that has made a difference to me. And that is, I'm just going to share that my screen back with you. Okay, if you cannot see my screen, let me know. And that is the idea that I just have too much that has to be done. And that is based on the belief that everything that I have to do matters equally. So this belief that everything matters equally is what I want to talk about today. So I just want to talk about, in theory, what that actually means. So I'm jumping from the idea that I have too much to do, and that it stems from the belief that everything on that list matters equally. So obviously equality, what I'm advocating is that it's a lie, in the sense that although equality as an ideal is, especially in pursuit of justice and human rights, is a great and worthy ideal, in the real world, results of things are never equal. So two students are never equal. It doesn't matter how fair officials are or try to be, two contests are never equal. Two talents are never equal. And actually things that matter most usually never matter at the mercy of things that matter the least. And I'll come back to this in a minute. So this one thing I'm arguing is the basis of how we make decisions and how we prioritize. So just think about when you were kids, for instance. When we were kids, we never had to prioritize. We did what we had to do when it was time to do them. So whether it's school time, breakfast time, it's chores time, it's homework time, it's time to bath, we never got to make decisions around these. As we turn into adults, we slowly get given more discretion on everything. So as young adults, maybe we get to a curfew. You can come home before 10 or 11 or 12. Or what university do you want to go to, Gerald? But and then as we become complete adults, we have complete choice on how we use our time. But we're rarely actually sat down and taught on how to make good choices and how to prioritize, right? And as professionals, we somehow have been led to believe that being busy is good and doing a lot is productive, rather than doing the most important and one thing that matters most on our list. So I love this quote. It's not enough to be busy, so are the ants. And I'll come back to this in a minute. So I just want to go back to me and how I was prioritizing. And I found that I was prioritizing in a completely haphazard approach that was undermining my success. I was getting more and more stuff piled on my to-do list that felt that it was important. And so I was just doing as much as I could. I was completely overbooked. I was overcommitted to things that I was doing. And I was reactive to the things that I was reactive to everything, whether an email was coming through or whether I had a long list of things that needed to be done. The things that actually mattered the most didn't scream out to me. And so I was just going usually from top down. So I was trading the best decisions for any decision. And I was measuring my productivity based on how many things I got done and how many decisions I made as a leader. And I realized that everything usually felt urgent, it felt important, and ultimately everything felt equal in my world. And so I want to talk about how the things that are most important will not scream out the loudest. And actually having a to-do list for me, having a to-do list was making it worse to figure what is important. So what did I do? I stopped using a to-do list. Now, I know a lot of you and probably most people use a to-do list, but whilst to-do lists have a value in that they're a useful collection of the things that we intend to do and our best intentions are every day we put out on a list, they often distract us with trivial and unimportant tasks that we feel obligated to get done just because it's on our list. And if allowed, they actually will set our priority if you start from top, or actually start from the things that you feel are easiest to get done, and often dictate our day. So I think of emails, for instance. When I worked for my last company, I found that majority of people would just work from the last email that came through that they cared about or they felt they can respond, and that is how they prioritize their day. So, and everywhere you look at for productivity advice is around to-do lists, whether it's apps you're looking at or softwares, everything is advocating this idea that we should put lists down and we should capture the things that we need to do and we need to go through them. I started to operate completely differently. The first thing I started to do was to pause just long enough to decide on what actually matters and allow that to drive my day. And I'll talk about how I do that differently. And then I found that I was doing sooner what I used to plan to do later, or working from a sense of priority rather than just a trivial survival task that was on my list. So this idea that, and most people would argue to me that, hey, Gerald, but I have lots of important things that needs to be done. And the argument from the book is that, yes, there might be lots of important things, but at any given time, there's only one thing that is the most important thing to do. And this is the principle behind the one thing. So how I now prioritize. So the book calls it a success list, and I'll just distinguish between a success list and a to-do list. So some of you probably heard of Pareto's law, the 80-20 rule, the idea that Pareto discovered that wealth was distributed. 80% of the people had 20% of the wealth, and 20% of the people had 80% of the wealth. And a success list, or turning a to-do list into a success list, is the idea of doing this, of picking out the things on your list that will generate, obviously, the most results. It doesn't have to be 80-20. It could be what one thing could make 99% of the difference, or what one thing can make 95% of the difference. And I found that success lists are short. They're usually 2 or 3 things. They're not long lists. They are things that head you towards your sort of direction. They're a directive rather than a disorganized directory, which to-do lists are. Rather than putting a to-do list in an app or on a sheet of paper, I started to put it in my calendar and allocating specific time for me to do the things that I deem to be successful. So I always found myself now working on the most important things at any given time. And then finally, the difference between my to-do list and my success list was the idea that your energy isn't equal during the day. If you can think of your energy the same way you think about how an energy bar exists on a game. In the morning, when you wake up, your energy bar is full, and during the day, it slowly depletes. And actually picking the things that are scariest, so they're usually the most the things that will make the greatest difference, and putting them at the front of your day, or when your energy is most, is much more effective than actually going through a to-do list. And usually what we tend to do is to pick the easiest thing to check off, and then missing out on the things that will move the needle the most. So I now do not use a to-do list. I use a success list. And what does that look like? So a success list, unlike a to-do list, looks like this. So my annual goals might be, so on a personal level, I want to buy my dream house, which was my goal then. By the way, I've been working for years wanting to buy my dream house, but actually putting it down on a list and building a plan towards it allowed me to do that. Becoming a better dad or a partner, building 6 new habits that makes me 10 times healthier in my personal life, and then starting a new business. And then whatever these goals are, breaking them down on a monthly basis, what the top 3 things are, and then on a weekly basis, what the most important thing that you can do that moves the needle are. And this has been how I have changed my approach in how I do things. And I title this how I 10x my personal productivity, because a year before that, I had a goal of buying my dream house in 10 years. And I was able to do that in a year. And in my mind, that meant I had 10x my personal productivity. So that is my learning from the one thing. It is only 1 out of 6 key things that the book talks about. So for those that are interested, you can go ahead and buy the book and learn more from it. But I thought I would start with just the idea that not everything is equal, and actually using the Pareto law, we can pick the things that move our needle the most. Thank you. So I would love to take questions. After that, maybe challenge my approach or my thinking, or add to it, if that is okay. Let me stop sharing my screen. Can I get some thoughts? Angela, now you've stopped eating. All questions?
Hello?
Howdy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi, it's Bybreen. Hi. Really loved what you had to say, Gerard. I hate to-do lists, so I don't actually work with to-do lists. I haven't read the book as yet. However, what I did quite some time ago is like map a vision of my life. And because it's then put in different compartments, what happens is that I may select what's a priority from that overall vision, and then focus down on that one thing. So I found that my energy isn't dissipated. It just focuses on what I need to get done. So it's great that I haven't read the book, but I'm sort of in a similar frame of mind and approach.
Awesome, thank you. So you're talking big vision and then pick from that, which is, I think it's close to what I've done with saying this is my annual goals, and these are the one or few things that I want to do, and then you always work towards that.
Yes, because I'm a blue sky thinker on the one hand, and so once I've got that clarity over where I'm going, so being quite directed, then I can also break it down into chunks and so bring out the detail. Because, you know, my understanding of to-do lists is you can get lost in the details and just be going around and round and round. However, if you have a vision for where you're going and know how to map the detail of that, that tends to work for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Bybreen. Any other thoughts and suggestions?
Yeah, I'd love to. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
And, oh, perfect. Sorry, my camera's not working on this particular computer. It's Tendai from a company called Quest for Success. I've got this book. I got given that book for Christmas. So it's funny, I actually had it on my bedside, and I've not read it for some time, but I highlighted some bits. And I definitely do co-sign this book for anyone that's contemplating it. I think someone's left the link as well, the Amazon link. But there's a chapter in there called Success Leaves Clues. And what I've noticed with a lot of successful people, I basically do vision boards. I get booked by corporate clients, and I do online programs as well. But I've noticed that a lot of successful people use these principles, exactly what you're speaking about. What was her name? What was that lady? Breen was just speaking about, you know, she's more of a vision person. And a lot of the successful people, they don't resort to the list side of things. Or if they do, they do it in the format that you kind of showed, where it's not so detailed, you know, because then people find that they're not ticking it off. But this chapter that's in the book called Success Leaves Clues, it says, look behind any story of extraordinary success, and the one thing is always there. This is the storyline for extraordinary success stories. Passion for something leads to disproportionate time practicing it or working at it. That time spent eventually translates to skill, and when skill improves, results improve. Better results generally lead to more enjoyment and more passion, and more time is invested. It can be a virtuous cycle all the way to extraordinary results. And that's actually been the case for me with my vision boards and who I'm working with and the people that are buying my programs. I just focused on something that I was really, really passionate about. I've got a DJ school, I do social media classes, and then vision boards. I noticed I really love personal development. So the minute I focused on that kind of like as one thing, like I've had like extraordinary results, to be totally honest. And I think that was based on what they said there in chapter 2. When you find something that you're really, really passionate about, and I love that you broke it down into personal and professional goals we should be looking at. But when you look at that one thing that you really, really love, like the results flow in, and what they've put in that little bit of chapter there is gold dust. Because yeah, that's basically been my success. I've been effortlessly making money during this pandemic. I've been quite surprised, effortlessly making money by just focusing on, do you know what, I just really like vision boards. I'm just going to focus on that on my Instagram account, and I'm getting people buy my platinum package without me even selling it on there. So yeah, I just want to co-sign what you're saying is definitely true. And you've inspired me to pick up the book again.
Thank you, Tendai. Thank you. Yes, Jeff wants to say something. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thanks. Yeah, I do understand what the basic idea of what you're saying in terms of, you know, actually doing something is important. But I think that it's from my personal point of view that, and I use notebooks and lists all the time, and it's what I find is that making a list plays a role in what I would call self-soothing, in terms of if I feel blocked in some way, I'm not sure what my priorities are. By making a list, by listing things out, and sort of being able to and say to myself, yeah, I've got everything there, everything that is on my mind is on this piece of paper. What that does is it makes me feel better. And it isn't that the list particularly drives any decision or motivation, but it gives me it slows me down and gives me a bit of a perspective. So I think for me that plays an important part of, you know, what I do basically.
Thank you, Jeff. And I agree that I'll come to you, Angela. Yeah, the book actually doesn't suggest that we shouldn't use lists. It suggests that we shouldn't use lists as a way of organizing our what we do, right? So the list is a great way to get your thoughts down, but actually through elimination, you get to the things that is actually the one thing that will move the needle. And that is, and so, yeah, it is part of the process rather than the process, correct? Mm-hmm. Angela?
I guess I'm like agreeing with both what you've said and what Jeff said, because like I saw a comment written somewhere that your brain, I feel like my brain is like 1,000 tabs on the laptop open all at once. So I physically need to see things to help pull me and guide me in. But when you were writing about, you mentioned about the annual goals, like the bigger, like you have like was said earlier about your blue sky thinking and the big picture, but actually then how do you break it down? And one thing I found really effective, because I'm a big visual person. I was going to actually, while we're here, let me just quickly, I don't know if anyone can see my big board that I have right in front of my desk, and that's my like motivational quote for the year. So just like when I look up, it's just there, and everywhere I want to travel. But on my other wall, I put and I think people probably have heard of it or used it before. It's like a quadrant to-do list. So you put urgent along the top and important down the side, and you put it into 4 quadrants. And then I put, when I was at the start of my business, I put all of the things I needed to do, which all felt equally important because they do in the moment. I put them all onto Post-it notes and then really sat down and was like, right, which is, so the top quadrant is most important and most urgent. And then it kind of filters down into 4. And then you've got everything. So you're acknowledging everything you need to do, but it helps you focus on the one quadrant that you say you're going to stick to and then break that down. So it's, otherwise I get a bit worked up that, oh no, I know there's all this other stuff and it needs to be written down somewhere. And then I guess something else that I found really useful that might be good for people is we sometimes forget how far we've come. So our productivity can feel like, oh, I've not reached where I want to be. So I feel demotivated. So every time I hit something off of my quadrant list, I didn't scrum. I love like crunching up Post-it notes and throwing them away and being like, yeah, but I just tick them and then move them onto the side of my wall so that every day I was seeing what I had achieved as a way to keep me in my productive state. So I'm like, oh no, you have achieved so much. Look at all the things you've taken off that list, because obviously your quadrant's going to continuously have things on it as you move things through it. So yeah, so I found like that's as you were talking, I was like, right, annual stuff, how can I put that? But then not, I have the same issue of you have a to-do list and then yeah, I do the little things because I'm like, yeah, tick it, and the big thing like gets left. So a quadrant worked really well to kind of acknowledge everything, but make sure important things get done first.
Awesome. Great advice.
So I think I agree with everybody that's spoken so far. And I do like a culmination of everything, and I use my journal to do it. So my journal has an annual bit, and I do a vision board. I always do a vision board in about November. And then I use my journal to kind of plan, and it has a year plan, it has a quarter plan, it has a monthly, and then in the weeks it's like, for those of you that weren't on Wednesday, I said I do like 3 tasks. But what I have learnt more recently is that those 3 tasks are there, but I think, and I said it in the call, I think I need to break down sometimes I need to break down the 3 tasks a bit more. So I think that's where the to-do list might come in. Like, this is the task that needs doing, but in order for me to do that and complete that thing, these are the things that I need to do. And I have used the quadrant, well, not the quadrant so much, but the Post-it notes and moving them, because I'm visual. I like to move things and see, I've completed something. So yeah, I think I agree with everyone, but I use the journal to do that. And it allows me to look back and see where I've come from, where I was and how far I've got.
Thank you, Lolly. Any other advice or thoughts or comments? Pat? Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, hi. The irony of this last session is the fact that before coming on, I was thinking, oh, crikey, have I got enough time to attend this webinar? And then I was reminded of something I said to my wife this morning, which is I've just picked up another project and I need to improve my productivity. So I thought, yeah, I really should. And it's been great because what you've highlighted there is, what is a very successful way of working. I'm kind of have been where Jeff has talked, and you kind of on that journey to sort of morphing towards that standard traditional to-do list, which I think, Jeff, what you described in there is it's a bit of a comfort blanket. It's where you've sort of downloaded it all, and there's that kind of, you can tick and cross everything as you go along. But there's a couple of things. I mean, these are sort of just added tips that I found starting to help me as I transform, what I used to do to what I'm doing now. Number one is to keep it all visible. So I think you described it there, Angela. You showed the board. Keep it. I've got those white sheets that you can stick on your wall that don't make a mark on your new paint. So making sure it's visible, and then making sure your goals are visible as well. and not working off sort of scraps of papers around the room, or to-do lists that are around the room, or whatever other way you choose to work. Make sure it's all visible for you. And I think, Gerald, something you talked about, which is to know yourself as well. Knowing yourself and knowing the way you work is really important. So I know when I have dips, I know when I'm at my most productive, and I know when I'm most productive creatively, and if I'm doing a piece of strategic work as well. So, that for me is early mornings or mid mornings, and know when there's distractions, in the house as well. And the last bit for me is I also know I'm easily distracted. So if I have got a piece of work that has to be out as a deadline, I go into a room where there's no distractions. And I know that's not always easy. It possibly is one of the kids' bedrooms because, I'm not distracted by anything else in there apart from tidying up. But then I go in there with sort of clean sheets of paper and one pen, and then just sort of scribble out what I'm then plan to do. And then I liked your last bit, Angela, about how you then identified whether you've successfully completed a task or not. Don't screw it up and put it away, but put it to one side. It is then measuring yourself, and whether it's the to-do list or your personal goals. It's like, have I actually done a good job today? Because I think when you work for yourself, you can quite easily kid yourself that you've done a good day's work, but not necessarily have done it. So I think having the being brave enough to measure yourself and understand whether you actually performed or produced in whatever way you measure, I think is really, really important. Yeah. I think it's some great learnings for me there, as well as as I work in different ways now to what I'm used to.
Thank you, Pat. And I just want to touch on what you said and just maybe clarify what I'm saying in that I think the courage to decide on what you don't work on and the courage to decide on what you do work on is where I fell short. So I had a system, I had a place where I was putting all the list of things that I wanted to do. I had an overall goal. I knew where I wanted to go, but on a day-to-day basis, when it came to deciding what do I do now, I was picking the things that was easiest to do. I was picking the things that I felt like doing when I felt like doing it, rather than asking the question, what one thing could make the biggest difference in this moment, right? And I'm looking at the whole picture. And I think that is the leap that I made that has now allowed me to go from someone who was busy to someone who is no longer busy. And I don't feel rushed. I don't feel anything is urgent. What I tend to do is to say, no, that's not important. No, that's not important. No, I don't care about that. No, I don't care about that. And now I can say I don't care about a lot of things that most people think I probably should care about and I used to care about. So I just wanted to make that distinction. Is I'm not suggesting you shouldn't have a system. I'm suggesting pick the things that makes the biggest difference in any given time.
I just wanted to add something quickly. Everything that everyone's saying is great because it gives you a reflection on how my own process is working. I do have a digital to-do list. I use Todoist, but I also have a written to-do list as well, or a success list that I'm going to change that into. But what I've found I think it's how you're writing down how you write down what it is you have to do depends on how you do it or how you engage with it, and like the intention behind it. Because sometimes I find that I'm writing something down and like, oh, I need to complete this, or write something down that's very specific. The more specific you are in that task, is exactly what it is you need to get done without getting all these distractions in the way. But in terms of a question, I was thinking you touched on some of the daily practice, and also I think Pat mentioned about it being visible as well. But I find sometimes that if I can't get a task done within that day and it bleeds into the next day, or it feeds into the next day, and then it goes into the next day, I start questioning myself. But then I have to evaluate and think, well, why has that gone over? And then you start, the time is now. I mean, like the other day I was working, where's the day gone? The day's just completely gone, and I haven't done what I intended to do. And even though I know what the answer is to that, sometimes you want to hear what other people's feelings are around, or any tips or advice, or if they're experiencing that, or is that just being part of us, just being human? You just have to accept certain things, like the situation we're in now. We had no control over. We had to accept it and adapt to it. But at the same time, if I've got a task that's got a deadline, and then I'm finding myself, I'm working until like, midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. There's times that I've done an overnight before when I've been working from on a particular project, whether it's a video production project or not. But I just wanted to, I think it's more of a question to the group that I'm asking. I mean, I don't know if anyone wants to feed in on the fact that, that keeping that daily practice anchored, but being able to make sure you complete that task in that day and not have it go in the other days, because obviously we get distractions and there's emergencies and things that happen.
Thanks, Daryl. Anyone? Sounds like a...
Sorry, can't answer your question, but Selena has got her hand raised.
Hey, Selena.
I wanted to say something, so if anyone else wants to answer the question first, I don't have an answer for Daryl.
Sure. So the short answer, Daryl, is what I'm thinking is that if things are moving, are jumping from day to day and they're not getting done, it's either two things. It's either, number one, it's so important you're putting it off, or it's not important, right? So you've got to decide on it. You've got to look at it and say, okay, this thing has been in my calendar for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Is it important? If I didn't do it, what would happen? Right? If I didn't do it at all, what would happen? And if it's not going to move the needle and you're not doing it, then remove it from your to-do list. If it's going to actually make an 80% difference to your overall vision, your goal, whatever it is, then you're putting it off because it's scaring you, right? And if that's the case, then you need to prioritize that in when you have the most amount of energy and do just that.
What about when you're working and the needle's not moving? And what I mean by you're working and the needle's not moving, meaning that it might be that there's a you're not working at your best. So you're still working, you're still putting the time in, but you're doing it you're just doing what you would normally, but when you're working at your best, you're being the most productive, most creative, meaning that you're doing your best standard of work. So it's kind of like, do you either stop working in that moment, or do you then come back to it when you can be working at at your peak performance in that sense, rather than it just be, I'm just putting words on a piece of paper, but there's no thought process going into it, because you're either really tired, or there's health issues, or there's something, you've got there's things that hinder you working in your performance zone.
I think
you've probably answered your question there, which is the latter, right? It's you've got to stop and you've got to come back when you're energized and you're most creative.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to talk these things through until you answer it.
True.
Penny dropped. Yeah.
Go ahead, Celine.
So on the email that Lolly sent out, it said write down your 3 things. I wrote 3 things, but as everyone's been speaking, I actually came up with 3 more things that I actually do. So my brain is like, I'm a creator, so I'm like big vision, and I struggled with productivity and what's the word? Like, the actual implementation of stuff. So what I do is I've do a mind movie, which is like someone mentioned about a vision board, but it's like a digital moving version, probably because I need some more interaction. And then I like Angela, I write a big vision board type, big project board. So I'm not going to show the whole room because it's a bit messy, but like, if you can see that I have 2 big A1 sheets, and I have those for every single project, which has the kind of big goal on it. And then from there, I write down the we call it the success list. It's a micro success list. So for me, I was forgetting to do stuff, trying to just do big picture, and I was forgetting the little bit. So I was working with a coach, and I started writing down every single thing that I did, kind of what Jeff said. So for me, I rather than getting to the end of the day and feeling like I hadn't achieved anything because the big thing hadn't been ticked off, I could see that I had done some stuff throughout the day. So for me, it was like, okay, I've achieved something. So it's like my brain needed that kind of reassurance. And then two things that I've also started to implement over the past, one is just this and a couple of months. So for me, it's like writing everything down the night before, like a brain dump, so that I don't go to sleep with the stuff on my brain, because I found that I wasn't resting because I was always thinking about things that need to be done. So I was writing everything down. And then also having an accountability partner. So I've literally just started this with someone this week. So every 2 weeks, we're going to check in on our bigger personal, so we separated into personal and business goals, and checking in to see how we're doing. And a way to keep accountable with that is that we've created lists in Asana, which I know some people use Trello things. So even in between the 2 weeks, we're not waiting for the 2 weeks to pass to say, oh, did you achieve that? We can kind of see the progress that we're making. And I think I'm going to implement what you've said about, if it's still on the list after a certain amount of time, it probably isn't that important. So removing stuff. So yeah, that's it really. Oh, and the other thing, the last thing, is accepting who I am, because someone mentioned about working in the morning, like you have the most energy in the morning and blah, blah, blah. That doesn't actually work for me. And for a long time, I was struggling trying to force myself to fit into everyone else's mode of productivity, which is working in the morning. For me, I'm most productive at night, actually in the really late hours of the night when it's very silent outside. And sometimes I need to accept that I don't work like everyone else, and I need to just be up at 3 a.m. That's it.
Cool. All right. Any comments that I'm missing on here? Questions, thoughts? Sarah, you've been quiet. Oh, Angela has got, you're on mute, Angela.
Sorry, there was just one actually, yeah, because in terms of this list, there's one other thing that I wanted to mention, because one word that keeps coming up a lot is like not only productivity, but what distracts us from our productivity. So one thing, this is just talking on a personal experience, and it's something that's gone around a lot in lockdown, but I guess us all being working from home people in general anyway, you know, even if we're not at the hub, for a lot of people, we've now mashed together different areas of our life into one space. So for me, my bedroom is where my desk is, it's where I relax with my TV, and it's where I sleep. So there's 3 different areas of my life that happen in one space. And it's very easy for me, I found previously, it's very easy to slip out and in of all of them. And that was really hindering my productivity. So what I do now, my TV is right next to my desk on my left. And I need to put it down on the thing of workshops to run. But one of my things that I do is around habits, understanding how your habits form. And was reading a really fantastic book called Atomic Habits. If anyone wants to get it, it's a really good one to have. But it basically talks about your cues and how you don't actually realize you're initiating a habit until your cue triggers you and you're already in it. So my TV, before I'd know it, sometimes I turn it on and I'm there like with it on in the background and I'm trying to be, and it's absolute crap, like that doesn't work. So I now have a black piece of cloth that I put over my TV. So that signals to my brain that when that's on, it's work time, my space is work. When I have to physically take that cloth off of my TV, it's weird because I'm tricking my brain. I know the TV is there, I can see the side of it right now. But because that's over the TV, my brain is like, this is not a relaxing room right now, this is work room. When I take that sheet off, then I'm like, okay, now I'm allowed to guilt-free sit in this room and relax and use this room for that reason. So that's just something I found from how to help you be productive by minimizing your distractions, especially when, because, you know, one of the suggestions was remove your TV from you. I'm not going to remove my TV from a room every time I don't want to look at it. So what could I do instead to kind of make it invisible so that it tricks my brain into being like, right, work mode. So yeah, just a little tip for anyone.
I started doing something similar, and I only started in the middle of last week. So I do have all the rooms, so I have the living room and I have a bedroom and have my studio, but I find I walk around with my laptop like it's a phone. So it comes to bed with me, it comes in the kitchen with me, it's everywhere. And actually, the place that it doesn't need to be is in my bedroom, ever. It doesn't ever need to be in there, because if I'm on my laptop, I'm normally working. And if it's anything else, I can do it on my phone. So now I don't bring my laptop in my bedroom. And I've been really trying. It's really difficult. But what it also does is it makes you have to get up to go to work, whether to go to work in the living room. It makes you have to get up to go and do it. So that's been working quite well with me. Still comes to the studio and the kitchen, but it doesn't go in the bedroom anymore. Gareth?
You're on mute, Gary.
The one thing that I've always found useful, even before all of this, was I always known that I work better when there's someone else working next to me. And obviously I live alone, so it hasn't been that possible. But the days I've got the most done is when I'm working with my colleagues on FaceTime, and maybe 50% of that time we're not even talking. But just having someone else who's working and they're focused and I'm focused, it means I'm not going to turn Netflix on. It means I'm not going to start singing or playing my guitars or any of the other things I can do that I do to distract myself. It's like I'm just focused. And so maybe that's something that people could try, is like having someone that they know is going to be working at a certain time. Even if you plan it, like you said, do you want to work between 9 and 12? Maybe it's something that people could do on Zoom or FaceTime or whatever. Might help.
Really good advice, yeah. And I just want to add mine, how I deal with that, because I can't leave my iPad. My iPad is both entertainment, it's work, it's learning, it's everything. I don't have a TV at home necessarily, so it's difficult to to break that up. But I will take your advice, Gareth. But I think the thing that I do is I actually put everything in my calendar, and this is another recommendation from the one thing. My calendar has every hour, every minute is I know what I am doing, and if there's nothing in there, it means I'm free. But I know when I brush my teeth, when I wake up, when I'm spending time with my kids, when I'm drinking, and that's how my to-do list moves to my calendar by saying, this is what I need to do, this is when I'm going to do it, and this is how long I'm going to spend doing that thing. So if it's 3 a.m. for you, Selena, it's okay, what is the one thing that you're going to do when you are most energized, right? And that most important thing is in there. So that would be my feedback.
I was going to quickly say there's something that sprung to mind that I'm considering doing, or I'm in the process of doing. When Lorraine and Angela were speaking around, where your things are, and the positioning of your work, whether your desk and it's away from you, so you're not distracted to go to it. I'm considering removing my calendar and my to-do list off of my phone, and so you have to go to your desk. But I've actually, something, it's actually funny when you talk about habits, because the bad habit now is that I take my laptop and sit there with that in front of the TV, and I'm like, am I actually doing work, or am I just browsing? You know what I mean? And it gets too blurred. So I'm trying to discipline myself to say, okay, well, I'm not one of these that sit on social media for hours looking at like TikTok videos or anything like that. So I'm not like, I'm not in terms of time, I'm not. But I'm still considering I've removed a lot of notifications coming in. So like distractions coming in on your desktop, distractions coming in on whether it's your iPad, The only other thing I need to remove notifications on at the moment is my Apple Watch, because that I found that I've implemented a habit and then something else takes you away from it. So it's like, you have to almost kind of assess your whole workflow to optimize it properly, to make sure you can carry it through, and making sure what you're doing. Because what I find with myself sometimes is that I'm constantly, not constantly, but trying to find something that don't exist in another to-do process, when really I've got all the tools that I need here, and I just need to make sure that I stick with those tools and not think about what's over there or over there. And I know Gareth can relate to this because of some of the tools that we spoke around that we're working with at the moment. But that was just really just some perspective, really, and just kind of removing notifications and apps that you don't need to use in your leisure time as well as your work time.
Thanks, Daryl. It's 2:00. We're right on the money, on the time. So before you can stay and make any more comments, but I just wanted to thank everyone who showed up. You will get more emails from us about more content that's going to be delivered. We're actually asking for more of our members and our community to deliver content. So if you're a subject expert in any area, please reach out to team at Impact Brixton about what you want to deliver, and we will get that done. It's no longer socially frowned upon for you to leave us, but for those of you that want to stay, feel free to leave us, and feel free to stay and ask any questions or comment. So thank you. I just wanted to thank you guys for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think Rachel has a hand up.
Sorry, Rachel. Go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to say, was it Angela or was it you, Gerald, that spoke about the success list? Can't remember.
Yeah, it was both, probably.
Is it both? Oh, I just wanted to say thank you, because to be honest, that's a part of the reason why I don't do to-do lists, because I think, oh, I haven't got half of the stuff done, and then I find it demotivating. So actually turning it on its head and writing a list, and then keeping a separate list of things that actually I've managed to do. Yeah, I kind of feel that would be it's a lot better for me. And it's more motivating. Thank you. I've never heard of that before, so I just wanted to say thanks.
You're welcome, from me or Angela. I'm not sure.
Bye, Breen. Oh, hi. Just wanted to add, one of the things that I do is I actually switch my phone onto airplane mode. So, and then just put it wherever it needs to go. But I actually switch the phone off or put it on airplane mode as a way to, not be distracted by those notifications that are coming in. And then the other thing that I do, which is like a micro reward, is I keep what I call as a magic moments, like little book. So at the end of the day, it's about, oh, what was something wonderful that happened today that I may have planned for, insofar as I achieved something, or something, completely unexpected happened. And that's a wonderful way to continue my own sense of motivation. So I note those magic moments.
Awesome. Magic moment. Any other comments or questions before we all disappear into our drinking fest? I mean, just mine, but Jeff, you've been quiet. Any final thoughts? Do you want to close us down?
No, I thought it's useful, and it sounds to me as though the kind of rigid to-do list that you were talking about, I think most people have a more kind of more flexible approach to it, and I think as long as it doesn't become, doing to-do lists doesn't become, or managing your calendar or doing something sort of that kind doesn't become the objective or the end of the be all and end all of what you're doing, that eventually you actually go and do something, then I think that's probably what's most important. And you can only, I think the thing I've learned is you can really only do one thing at a time. Even if you've got 3 things open on your desk, you could only actually, do something well if you're focusing your attention on it. At least that's what I find anyway. So it's all been very helpful, and I think anything like this that makes us think about things that we all take for granted, probably, and we kind of unpack it and clean it out and get rid of all the stuff we don't need and put it all back all tidy. I think that's a good thing, really.
Thank you. And for those of you that care about multitasking and believe in multitasking, as Jeff has just said, it's we can only do one thing at a time. That's one chapter in the book, and they argue that it's absolutely not possible for human beings to do more than one thing at a time. We can, or actually, it seems like we can, but actually microseconds between us performing that, and we can't actually focus on one thing at a time, and that's why so we can't be very effective. So. Yes, I think it's a good end all. Go ahead, Angela.
I was just going to add that I think one thing that we should just allow ourselves is like flexibility to mix different approaches. So like I, at one point when I first went self-employed, was really rigid, like kind of like you were, Gerald, like blocked out my time. I'm going to do this at this time, da, da, da. And then I rebelled against myself, even though I set those for myself. I was like, no, I don't want to do this. And I just turned into an absolute child. So then I had a more flexible approach for a little while. And then I did the quadrant, and then just seeing what sticks. It's like throwing spaghetti on a wall and seeing what sticks. And some things will work better at certain times, like depending what other things we're going through. So I guess it's like, see, you know, all the ideas we've all talked about is kind of like, even if you think that won't work right now, just like, I guess, having it written down and then just giving a few a try. Because yeah, I think we've probably all been through some of them in like trial and error in some ways. But it's all been really, really useful, like some good extra tips that I'm going to go away and think about for sure. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Angela. And yes, on that note, happy Friday. Try as many of the ideas that you've heard as possible. And like Angela said, see what works for you. And if it works, let it stick. If it doesn't, throw it back at someone else.